Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tsakiridis. I work at Workshop Intangible Heritage, and we are located in Flanders, Belgium. I was the project coordinator of the Intangible Cultural Heritage and Museums project, or INP in short, which I will briefly tell you something about in the next few minutes. The project was a collaboration between 5 European partners, my organization, who was the lead partner, the Dutch Center for Intangible Heritage, Simdea from Italy. Oh, something is wrong. No, I'm sorry. I will start again because there was something wrong with the presentation. So, next try. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tsakiridis. I work at Workshop Intangible Heritage, and we are located in Flanders, Belgium. I was the project coordinator of the Intangible Cultural Heritage and Museums project, or IMP in short, which I will briefly tell you something about in the next few minutes. The project was a collaboration between 5 European partners. My organization, who was the lead partner, the Dutch Center for Intangible Heritage, Simdea from Italy, the Swiss Museums Association, and the French Center for Intangible Heritage, CFPCE. ICOM International, NEMO, the Network of European Museum Organizations, and the ICH NGO Forum were our associated partners, and we had the moral support of UNESCO. IMP was financed, among others, by the Creative Europe program of the European Union and the Flemish government. I will start out by telling you something about the context in which the project was elaborated and explain you its setup. The project that ran from 2017 to 2020, the beginning of this year, had as its goals to explore the variety of approaches, interactions, and practices on intangible cultural heritage in museums in the 5 partnering countries. We had set out to examine the possible roles that museums could play in safeguarding this type of heritage, in collaboration with communities, groups, and individuals that are involved in the daily practice thereof. We saw that there are museums that have extensive experience in this type of participatory and future-oriented work revolving around intangible heritage, but that for others, it felt more challenging to embrace. How could we inspire all of them and invite all involved, from the ICH perspective and from the museum's perspective, to share their expertise in order to strengthen the collaboration and competences? But first, when we talk about intangible cultural heritage, more and more also referred to as living heritage, we refer to a concept that is based on a convention by UNESCO, dating from 2003, the Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. There, its definition states that intangible heritage means the practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, and skills, and which can be quite important in the context of museums, also instruments, objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces associated therewith, that communities, groups, and in some cases individuals, recognize as part of their cultural heritage. This heritage, transmitted from generation to generation, is constantly recreated by communities and groups in response to their environment, their interaction with nature, and their history. It provides them with a sense of identity and continuity, and promotes respect for cultural diversity and human creativity. The convention highlights 5 domains in which intangible heritage is manifested, among others, which you see illustrated here in this graphic that is part of the IMP toolkit. The first one is oral traditions and expressions, including language as a vehicle of intangible cultural heritage. The second one, performing arts. The third, social practices, rituals, and festive events. 4, knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe. And 5, traditional craftsmanship. Central to the safeguarding of this heritage are the communities, groups, and individuals that embody, cherish, and transmit this heritage into the future. What is meant by safeguarding is also mentioned in the text of the convention. These are the measures, safeguarding measures that are aimed at ensuring the viability of intangible cultural heritage. but in other words, supporting communities in practicing their heritage in a way that is meaningful to them. It includes identification, documentation, research, preservation, protection, promotion, transmission, formal and non-formal education, etc. The intention of the Intangible Cultural Heritage and Museums project was to explore how museums and these aforementioned communities could interact and collaborate with an eye on safeguarding, how there are different methodologies for making sure heritage can continue to have meaning in the future in ever-changing contexts can strengthen each other. So in order to provide a better understanding on how these two so-called worlds interact and coexist, more or less on an institutional level, we developed this graphic. It shows how the worlds or paradigms, or even daily practices, if you want, of intangible heritage and museums interact on a European scale, because of the European scope of this project, and on a worldwide scale. Taking into consideration what is happening in the field, but also on the different policy or policy-related levels that are of relevance. If you're interested in learning more about all these details, you will see that on the project website of IMP, you can click through this entire document and get more information on all its different components. So in order to explore the connections that exist in the fields of museums and of intangible cultural heritage, and to map out what was already happening with an eye on safeguarding, during the course of the IMP project, we organized 5 international conferences and expert meetings. These events included introductory lectures, keynotes, series of inspiring examples, workshops, the presentations of position papers, Q&A moments with practitioners of intangible heritage, and so on. On the project website that you see projected here, you'll find an overview of all of these past events, including elaborate reports and recordings of the different sessions. A major outcome of the project was the toolkit that has the intention to provide guidance on safeguarding intangible heritage. Its contents were co-created during the 5 sessions that were held in the different partner countries and are all available to download via the next slide. There you will find a link to the toolkit. I will briefly present you an overview of the type of tools that you can find there. Our book publication is titled Museums and Intangible Heritage, Towards a Third Space in the Heritage Sector. It is set up as a companion that will help its readers to discover transformative heritage practices that occur when practitioners of intangible heritage and museums work together. It is based on the premise of intersection. There is no doubt that museum practices and intangible cultural heritage practices have common ground from which new perspectives on heritage continue to sprout. They are manifested in museums' functions, such as acquiring, conserving, exhibiting, and so on, and the safeguarding measures related to intangible heritage. We suggest that at the very intersection of both practices, new approaches are born that are of relevance for all involved. Of this book publication, we also prepared 5 shortened versions, executive summaries, in English, French, Italian, Dutch, and German. In the toolkit, you will also find an introductory booklet that briefly highlights some central concepts and that invite museum workers to do a mapping of their current work in relation to intangible heritage. The IMP partners and associated partners concluded their 3-year trajectory by composing a declaration in which you can read what we have uncovered through the past years and in which we present you a glance into future aspirations we have. There are tools that provide you insights into opportunities and into possible risks you want to be aware of when collaborating in the context of intangible heritage. The toolkit includes video documentation of 5 co-creations that took place between museums and practitioners of intangible heritage, and that were made possible in the context of the project. They provide you a look behind the scenes of how this communal endeavor of safeguarding heritage can look like. As I briefly mentioned at the beginning, 5 international conferences we held also included presentations of inspiring examples coming from museums that have previously worked with practitioners of intangible heritage. All of these cases can be consulted on the website, and some of them are in a specially composed booklet as well. The toolkit doesn't only include informative content. It also wants to activate you to explore what can be done in the context of the museum that you're active in. There are brainstorm exercises, such as the ones you see here, and that were part of the workshop in the context of this webinar, or also an inspirational card game. And currently in the making are also instruments that highlight steps practitioners of intangible heritage can take if they want to start up common actions with museums with an eye on safeguarding their living and dynamic practices. There is a tool that guides you if you have questions in relation to ethics and deontology, and an extensive bibliography on the topic of museums and intangible heritage. In the run-up to the project's final symposium, we also interviewed past participants, from the museum's point of view, as well as from the perspective of the practitioners of intangible heritage, about their ideas on how the common endeavor to preserve intangible heritage can take shape and form. These 10 inspiring videos shed light on their ideas. Next to what I have already mentioned, the toolkit also includes existing tools that can help you orient in the subject matter, from the ICOM Code of Ethics, for example, to the capacity building program linked to the UNESCO 2003 Convention, and so on. And we are also still working on gathering and creating new tools, so all of your ideas and suggestions are welcome. Once again, here you can see the link to the toolkit where you can download all of the different elements that are part of it. And to conclude, I am available for all of your questions, either here through the webinar or via my contacts that you can find on the first slides of the presentation. Thank you for your time.